Boom, 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 boom. A side, B side. What side are you on?
Welcome back. It's another episode of A Side B Side Podcast. What's up, Adam?
Hey, Brooke, how are you?
Really good. So I thought of you the other day because I went to the movies and I saw Old, and one of the previews.
Wait, hold on. You went to the movies, you saw Old, and you thought of me.
No,
Thank you so much.
Shut up. Shut up and let me finish. Okay, anyway, so in one of the trailers was from Fathom Events. And you know, Fathom Events does those really cool, like sometimes they do concerts, sometimes they re-show old movies. Well, last week you mentioned your favorite line from Star Trek.
I don't remember what
you
I don't
forgot
remember
your
what I
favorite
said from
line.
week to week.
Somebody remember?
Yeah. Somebody remember where we parked from Star Trek 4. Sorry.
Right. So it's the 35-year anniversary, and Fathom Events is doing a showing, and that particular scene was in the trailer. And I was like, Adam.
Oh, yeah. It's a great line. And I say it all the time.
I was like, he literally just said that. That's like his favorite line from this. So I was like, oh, that's great. But anyway, so I thought of you. That's why I thought of you.
Not because you were seeing the movie Old.
No, because I'm actually older than you. So no, I wouldn't say that.
Like if we stood next to each other or anybody looks at pictures of the two of us, no one would believe that. I mean, I could make good money getting people to bet on who was older between the two of us.
So real quick side note. So I went out this past weekend with my youngest, and like anytime she would tell anybody that I was her mom, they're like, that's your mom? Dang. I thought you guys were friends or sisters or whatever. And like there was one time somebody, I guess, was looking, giving me the once over, if you will, and she like blocked, she stood in their line of sight so they couldn't.
Hey, you got to look out for family.
It was just so funny to me. But anyway, Old is really good. Have you had a chance to see it yet?
I haven't. And I probably won't. It looks like the type of movie that's going to give me bad dreams. So
it's not scary.
It's not scary because it's definitely got like all the trailers are like this thriller, scary vibe, and like it was on every commercial break for like a while.
Oh no, it's not scary. It's if you've watched any M. Night Shyamalan movie, they're not scary. They're just weird.
Yeah.
It's just weird. And usually you can figure them out. But this one, I don't know that if you paid me, I would have figured it out.
Yeah. And I think the poor guy, like everyone, like it's like he's cursed because the first movie, there was such a twist. So now everyone's expecting a twist. And if there's not a twist, they'll be upset. But if there is a twist, they'll be like, oh, how predictable.
Right.
Like he can't win,
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. And you don't see it coming at all. So I highly recommend it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really good.
Excellent. Well, I've heard a lot of people went. So, and it's got that sort of weird timing where you just had the big Marvel movie, and then Disney's got this Jungle Cruise with The Rock and Emily Blunt that's coming out like this weekend. So
I'm not excited for it.
No, I'm not either, but I'm gonna see it because I like both of them so much, and I'm just gonna be like, why am I watching this movie?
Right. And see, that's why I don't want to go, because I'm like, I love Emily Blunt. I mean, I like The Rock too, but I love Emily Blunt, and I'm just like, I don't want to see this movie.
Yeah. So Disney went through this whole thing where they after Pirates of the Caribbean, they had this whole idea that they were gonna make movies based off of the rides at the old parks, sort of like a reverse engineering thing, because now they make rides for the movies, right? So they did Pirates of the Caribbean, and then they had that really, really horrible Haunted Mansion movie with Eddie Murphy.
Oh yeah.
And like it was so bad and didn't do well that they kind of like gave up on it. But evidently there's somebody at Disney that just wouldn't let this idea die. And they're like, no, this is a great idea, guys. Trust me. Let's try it again. And so now we get Jungle Cruise. But it's been for like 20 years. I don't know who the executive is at Disney that like this is their pet idea, but they will not let it die.
They need to. They need to absolutely let it die.
Because I don't, I'm like, okay, it'll be fun, but
Did you see Snake Eyes?
I have not yet. I was gonna go
What?
this weekend with the. I know I got. It's been stupid hot here, and work's been crazy, and I literally had tickets for Saturday night, and I worked on the patio all day on Saturday in like 90 plus heat, and I got home and I was getting ready to go to the movie, and it should be super easy. There's a bus stop literally outside of my building. I get on that bus, I go all the way to the movie theater. It's the last stop. I get off and I walk right into the movie theater. It's not hard. I don't have to do anything except step on a bus and then step off one. And I was so hot and tired that I sat down. I went outside, took the dog for a walk, and we came back in. We sat down, and I just like fell asleep on the couch like an old, hot, tired man. I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and I was like, "Oh, I missed my movie.
Did you get your money back?
Well, I do the AMC thing where I can go up to 3 movies a week.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like, I could, but I didn't pay anything for it because I already paid the $20 for the month, and
Right.
so I'm like, well, and then in my brain, my old man brain, I was like, well, that means that they'll get credit for one more person to have seen their movie, so I did them a favor.
Thank you, Grandpa.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just altruistic AMC Plus member over here. So no, I did find on my way home last night because for some reason I decided to walk home 3.5 miles from an appointment that I had. I walked by a little theater here in the neighborhood that I wasn't sure if it was reopened, and it is reopened, and they have Snake Eyes playing right now at 9:30 at night. So tomorrow night when my shift gets over, and if everything works out perfectly and I can find a Lime scooter and get to the theater, I may try to watch it tomorrow night. And it's one of those cool old, like, it's a little neighborhood movie theater where there's only 2 screens. There's like an upstairs and a downstairs, and that's it. And it's just a fun little place to go. So I'm excited they're reopened. So hopefully everything, the stars will align for me to see Snake Eyes tomorrow night, but we will see.
All right. Well, I hope you get to.
Well, and this weekend I got to see my oldest in A Good Man, Charlie Brown at a youth theater up here. So that was pretty great. So that was my time out this weekend.
Okay. All right. That's awesome.
It's a Good Man, Charlie Brown is an interesting show. Like, it's an interesting character.
They do a lot of. They take after you because they do a lot of theater.
Oh yeah. It was funny because we were at breakfast. Like, my parents were in town, my aunt and uncle, my uncle and his girlfriend partner were in town, and we were all sitting and talking about all the shows that my oldest has been in, and then my mom mentioned that my oldest and I had done shows together the last couple summers ago, and doing theater, and that I was the lead in a couple of shows, and the Anne, who was new to the family, was like, "Oh, I didn't know you did any theater, Adam," and I was like, "Oh, rough."
Where have you been?
I have transitioned just to the dad. I am but dad now of a theater person, which is I'm pretty grateful. So it was a lot of fun. It was stupid hot, but like, this little park has like a ton of shade, and the kids did great. I've had all the songs stuck in my head for 4 days now, so totally worth it.
Nice. Anything new? Oh, real fast. Love is Blind After the Altar is out now. You know how obsessed I was with that show and the reunion special. Watched it full through twice. So yes, After the Altar. It's 3 episodes. They're each like 45 minutes. So that's what I did today.
I love how and I watched the whole season and the reunion show as well, because I think for a lot of people it was like we're all trapped in quarantine, let's watch this at the same time so we can talk about it. I did that with a friend of mine as well, And I think it was funny because they were always like, oh, well, we're going to do another season. And we're like, okay. But they were like, well, why get new people and go through all this when it's just more fun to get the same people back together again? So like on Road Rules and Real World and Survivor, it took like 3 or 4 seasons before they just went to the All-Star cast and kind of gave up introducing new people. Love is Blind's like, nah, we were good. We got a good group. Let's just stick with them. They're weird.
We are never going to get chemistry like this again. Let's just roll with them.
Yeah. So we'll just do like an entire season of reunion special, basically. So.
But yes, you have to check that out. So this week is episode 55.
55.
Double nickels. Oh my goodness. Which of course means I get to go first.
Yes.
So Adam, I looked back and, of course this is a true crime podcast. So mostly all of our stories, pretty much all of our stories except for one, and very badly. Episode 9, it was the story of Terry Jandusa, who's a survivor. And I felt like, you know what? We need something good. We need something positive. We need another survivor story.
Yes, especially after the unsolved of last week.
Yes, the unsolved Millbrook twins. So we need, it is a true crime podcast, so there is going to be some gore and it is going to get pretty graphic. So that is a warning.
Ready.
But we do have a happy ending. So this is the story of Mary Vincent. I wrote on my note, spoiler alert of the best kind, because it's a survivor story. So Mary Vincent was born in 1963 in Las Vegas. She was one of 7 children. I don't know the order. I couldn't really find it. Mary's father worked as a mechanic and her mother was a blackjack dealer, and she was also in the military. So Mary, I guess in Vegas, you have to be a blackjack dealer, right?
Yeah, I would assume like it's one of those cities where everybody's got a little bit of connection to the casino industry in some way.
Yeah. So Mary wasn't really close to her parents, and things really seemed to decline when her parents decided to divorce in her teen years. So Mary left home and she ended up spending some time on the streets living in unlocked cars. Now, I've heard of this happening in multiple situations. People get into like their cars and stuff has been moved, and that's how they realize somebody's been living in their car. I'd even heard this one story that they knew someone was living in their car and they left behind a note for the individual that said, I'll leave the car open for you, just don't steal anything. Huh. So I guess it's a thing in some areas.
Yeah, I had friends who had a parking lot that was constantly getting broken into. So some people would put, like signs up saying like, there's nothing in here worth more than my window. Please don't break it.
But I mean, the fact that somebody is sleeping in your car and you are like, yeah, that's cool. I'll leave it unlocked for you. Just don't take anything. And then like, I think in the story that I was listening to, it was a podcast called This Really Happened, I think is the name of it. It's a really good one. And the person would like leave little snacks and stuff for them. Oh. It was really sweet.
Yeah, super sweet. I couldn't do it.
I would be.
I'm not that altruistic. Yeah.
That somebody is sleeping in my car, but kudos to you. I will give you a blanket or something. But no, you can't sleep in my car.
Yeah.
On September 29th of 1978, Mary decided to go stay with her grandfather in Berkeley, California. Now, she's 15 years old. She's homeless. She's broke. She decided to hitchhike. We've talked about this before, a fairly common practice in the 70s. I even said something to my mom. I was like kind of, telling her the story a little bit. And I was like, yeah, and she hitchhiked. I was like, how y'all did in the 70s? And she's like, I know, we did. And that was like not a big thing. Like, yeah, people just hitchhiked.
It's what you did. People were cool with it.
Now you say hitchhike, people are like, what? What? Huh? But in the 70s, it's like, oh, wait, let's just hitchhike across country. No. We don't do that here.
I mean, half the time people won't join you in the elevator.
Right. I'll wait for the next one. Thanks.
I'll just wait for the next one. That's okay. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's a personal thing. But
So Mary waited on the side of the road just outside of Modesto with two other hitchhikers when along comes Lawrence Singleton, who pulls over and offers Mary a ride, telling her he only had room for one. Her two companions warned her not to go. They're like, please don't go. But against their and her own better judgment,
bad vibes.
Bad vibes save lives. She went and she got into the van. So Mary gets in the van. They pull off. She's exhausted. She falls asleep. When she wakes up, she realizes they're not headed in the right direction at all. So she confronts Lawrence and he's like, oh, sorry, my bad, mistake, wrong turn. I'll fix it. She tells him that she needs to use the bathroom. So Lawrence pulls over under the guise of allowing her to use the restroom. Once they pull over, he climbs out, also pretending that he needs to use the restroom. He proceeds to hit her over the head with a sledgehammer, knocking her unconscious.
Jeez.
He ties her up and he throws her into the back of the van. Then he drives to a secluded area and he proceeds to rape Mary for the entire night, all night long. In the morning, it does not get any better for Mary. She begs Lawrence to please let her go. She's like, I will not say anything. I will not report you. Please just let me go. So he says to her, if you want to be set free, I'll set you free. And then he takes a hatchet and he cuts off both of Mary's arms. He does this.
What?
Partly to keep her from being identified, I'm sure, but there had to be some sort of deranged thrill from like torturing her as well, because she was alive. She wasn't like passed out. She wasn't dead. She was alive. And he cuts her arms off.
Like, okay, this is a dumb question. Not that it truly matters. Are we talking like elbows below, shoulders?
Elbows.
Where? Elbows, okay.
So figuring out that I guess she was bleeding out and that she was close to death, he throws Mary over a 30-foot cliff on I-5 near Del Puerto Canyon, leaving her out there completely naked and brutalized and mutilated. So unbelievably, this amazing 15-year-old manages to not only keep herself awake, because, you know, her body is probably in shock. Not probably, her body's in shock. When you're in shock, you want to go to sleep. She keeps herself awake, and she has enough forethought to pack her arms, you know, what has been cut off. She packs it in mud to tamp down the bleeding. And then she somehow also manages to climb back up this 30-foot cliff. The willpower on this woman, unreal. She is Wonder Woman. Screw Gal Gadot. She is Wonder Woman.
This is like the stuff that you see in the movie. So it's like, that couldn't happen.
Right.
Nope, did.
She said the willpower came from the fact that she wanted to save other girls from the fate that she had just experienced. That's what kept her going. So Mary gets back up the cliff and she walks 3 miles. She's naked, she's bleeding, she's covered in mud, she's without her arms. Fortunately, a couple driving down the road spotted Mary and they rushed her to the hospital. But I can't imagine this couple driving upon this girl and what they saw.
No, I'm sure they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
The couple was actually the second car to pass Mary. The first car was 2 young men who, once they saw Mary up close, drove off and left her. Which I'm pissed off at them, but at the same time, I'm like, I can't imagine what she looked like and how horrifying that was, but I'm still pissed off that they left her.
Yeah. Like, come on, guys. Clearly, this is a problem.
Right. Like, I know there was no cell phones, but you come on, guys. You're two guys and she's a girl. What is she going to do to you? But who knows? They might have been thinking, horror movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
So in the hospital, Mary immediately gets to work with police on identifying her attacker. She insisted, I can't wait to rest. And she worked with a sketch artist to complete a composite sketch. Lawrence Singleton was apprehended 10 days later. March of 1979, 6 months after the assault, Mary, with her 2 prosthetic arms, testified in court against Lawrence Singleton. Mary's testimony actually helped in securing a conviction against Singleton. He was sentenced to 14 years for attempted murder, rape, and multiple sex crimes. 14 years he was sentenced to. That was the maximum allowed by California law at the time. 14 years for attempted murder, rape, and other sex crimes.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. The presiding judge commented at his trial, if I had the power, I would send him to prison for the rest of his natural life. Mary also won a civil judgment against Lawrence Singleton. She was awarded $2.56 million, but of course, Mary never received a payment because of his financial situation. At the time of his arrest, he had just $200 in savings. So Lawrence Singleton only served part of his 14-year sentence. He was paroled after 8 years. His reduced sentence was based on good behavior and working as a TA in a prison classroom. Probably not hard to behave when there's no teen girls for your sick, crazy blankety blank to torture.
Right. And I can't imagine a lot of people are going to mess with the guy who cuts people's arms off.
Yeah, that's true. As a result of PTSD, when Singleton was released from prison, Mary started to suffer extreme night terrors. One episode for her was so bad that she broke her own ribs, jolting herself awake.
Ooh, that's awful.
So Lawrence Singleton was paroled to Contra Costa County in California, but they didn't want him there. No town would accept him. They all pretty much kicked him out. He bounced from town to town because every time, and think about this, this is the time before social media that people were finding out about what he did. And every time a town would find out that he was coming, there would be these massive mobs, and there would be riots, and they would kick him out. So eventually he ended up having to, because he was unable to find a place to settle. Oh, don't we feel bad for this poor piece of garbage? Not really.
So much.
He ultimately ended up living in a trailer on the grounds of the San Quentin prison until his parole ended, and he was released a year later in 1988. Lawrence returned to his home state of Florida after his release. He was convicted once so he goes back in 88, and by 90, he's convicted twice in the same year. He's convicted of theft. He served 60 days for the theft of a $10 disposable camera. And then later that year, in the winter, he was sentenced to a 2-year prison sentence for stealing a $3 hat. Trying to garner sympathy from the judge, he told him he was just a confused old man. Just a confused old man. No, dude.
It almost seems like the justice system was trying to make up for the fact they only gave him 14 for this horrible thing. So they're like, 2 years for the hat.
Right.
Which, I mean, I get, but still, there's some weird sentencing going on with this.
Especially because he got 60 days for the $10 camera, but 2 years for the $3 hat.
Yeah, I guess it depends on whose hat it was. Like the Morgan Freeman voiceover, he stole the judge's hat.
That was a bad move, Lawrence.
Yeah.
So in 1997, a neighbor called the police to report that Lawrence was assaulting a woman in his home in Sulphur Springs. When police arrived, unfortunately, they found the body of Roxanne Mays, a 31-year-old sex worker with 3 children. Mary traveled from California to Tampa to appear and speak at his trial. During her testimony, she described the attack and the toll that it had taken on her life. The judge sentenced Lawrence Singleton to death. Sadly, he didn't make it to the chamber. He died in 2001 from cancer in a prison hospital at the North Florida Reception Center in State Park in Stark, Florida. Although, karma, maybe?
I guess, but still would have been better for him to if they could have kept him alive suffering for a long time.
Yeah. So I mentioned Mary had prosthetic arms at the trial. She actually began using them within 2 weeks of her attack. Of course, in the 70s, they weren't nearly what they are now. But the fact that she was able to get them so fast is amazing.
Yeah.
Mary considers herself a tinkerer and used spare parts from broken down electronics to modify her prosthetics into custom designs, which I think is really cool. She went on to attend the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. She married Tom, and she and Tom had 2 boys. Unfortunately, she and Tom did divorce. She eventually began a career in art, and she works with chalk pastels to create what she says is, quote, powerfully upbeat women like female action figures. She can also be commissioned to draw family and individual portraits, and she also continues to customize her prosthetics. Mary also became a victim's advocate in support of victims' rights and delivers motivational speeches. The outrage at Lawrence Singleton's initial lighter sentence resulted in legislation supported by Mary. It prevents the early release of offenders who have committed a crime in which torture is used. In 1987, his release led to the Singleton Bill, which carries a 25 to life sentence for said violent offenders. Also in 1998, after the death of Roxanne Hayes, Mary went to Washington, D.C. to testify in front of Congress in favor of the congressional bill, No Second Chances for Murderers, Rapists, or Child Molesters Act. It says, I looked this up, and it says, quote, it would levy a penalty against a state after it has released a violent offender who has served a sentence if the sexual offender subsequently commits a new crime in another state. If the second crime occurred, the bill would require the Attorney General of the first state to transfer up to $100,000 from the first state's federal crime fighting grants to the second state. The first state would be responsible for paying the second state's cost of apprehending, prosecuting, and incarcerating the offender. It would also penalize states that release individuals convicted of murder, rape, or a dangerous sexual offense involving a child under the age of 14. While appearing before Congress, Mary also told them her story and the impact it's had on her. Also stating that Lawrence's lenient sentence allowed for the death of Roxanne Hayes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the bill did not pass. So that bright young teenager that wanted, I don't think I mentioned this before, but Mary wanted to be a dancer. That was one of the things that she loved to do, but she just kind of shifted her creativity into art and is an unbelievable woman. But there you go. That is the story of Mary Wonder Woman Vincent. I added the Wonder Woman part because
I think it's very, very much allowed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There you go. See, I told you, happy ending. Gruesome middle, but very happy ending.
Yeah. I mean, frustrating that in this, it feels like another death could have been prevented. I mean, Mary has the strength to get up and not bleed out and get him caught, and then the justice system doesn't do its job, and down the road another life is lost. That has to be exceptionally discouraging and frustrating and enraging,
because it truly, I mean, the way you look at it, it truly was preventable. And I know, of course Mary went and testified against him, but I can't imagine how her family feels as well.
Right. And those 3 children of Roxanne, who was murdered, have every right to be very, very angry.
Yeah. But man, Mary, what an amazing 15-year-old and beyond.
Yeah, like I said, in a movie, no one would believe it. They'd be like, "Oh no, that's not real."
That can't really happen.
That can't really happen. Oh, human spirit is pretty undefeated
Yeah.
at times.
But there you go. That's the B side.
So for the A side today, it right now is, Olympic time, and everybody's watching the Olympics and talking about the Olympics, and everyone's got opinions on sports that we'd ever think about and stories. Every Olympic event seems to have the big background about where these folks came from, and it's incredibly engrossing. And as often the stories are, things that, like whether it's what's her name, the swimmer, the 17-year-old from Alaska who came out of nowhere to win gold a couple nights ago, or the comeback story of there's one gentleman who's a swimmer who had cancer and has come back. And there's always great stories that go along with Olympics, and that got me thinking about how many of those stories have been made into movies.
Mm-hmm.
So for the A side this week, we're going to talk about Olympic movies, and it was really interesting as I started to sit down and go through them. Granted, this is not going to be a comprehensive list, but the ones that first popped in my mind, the big sports that we think of with the Olympics really aren't in there. Like, there is not a definitive Olympics gymnastic movie, which feels really weird. With as like, my mom will to this day tell me how enthralled I was as a 3-4-year-old when Mary Lou was doing her thing in 1984. And I mean, I can remember watching the Atlanta Olympics in 96, and like, gymnastics is always a huge deal, or at least has been for most of my life. And the fact that we've never really had like a definitive gymnastics movie feels weird. And there's not a lot of modern track and field movies either, which also feels really strange. Because I mean, in the mid 90s, you did have 2 movies about Steve Prefontaine that came out, because the 90s, it was like 2 studios would get the same idea, whether it was Deep Impact and Armageddon, or Dante's Peak and Volcano, or it was like always like 2 competing movies, Prefontaine, and then there was Without Limits or something, but they didn't make my list. But it's interesting that some of the biggest sports don't have movies that I immediately thought of.
Yeah, because even the most recent track movie was actually about an Olympian from the 40s, from World War II.
Yeah. It's just really strange. Like, you'd think that those would be some of the top, the biggest stories, but it's weirdly enough in my list, when I went through these 5 that I thought of, there is more of a winter Olympics vibe than there is summer Olympics. So that's really strange.
Oh yeah, like Cool Runnings.
Like, yeah. Well, spoiler alert.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'll delete it. We'll edit that out.
We'll just skip to the end. Let me build this up there. All right. Before Brooke spoils any more of my list, we're going to start off. So the first one that I thought of when I think of Olympics, I gave the Best Soundtrack Award. And it was funny because I was memeing this. So granted, this is well before memes, but when you're a kid and you'd kind of like do something from a movie, or like, it would basically like real life memeing. So whenever somebody was doing something epic or we were running in slow motion, I would always start doing the Chariots of Fire theme song. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And you can't like start doing that and not run in slow motion. Like,
right.
I'm sitting in a chair and my arms are like slow motion running. And I don't know if I picked that up from TV shows or movies, but I knew the slow motion running and the theme song before I ever saw the movie. I don't think I saw Chariots of Fire until the mid 90s, and it came out the same year I was born, 1981. But it is that theme song has been around my entire life, and I can't not think of the Olympics and people running on the beach without dun 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 dun. So Chariots of Fire was a 1981 British historical drama film. It focused on the story of 2 British athletes at the Olympics in 1924. One was Eric Liddell, who is a devout Scottish Christian, and he, of course, ran for the glory of God. And then Harold Abrams was another English athlete. He was Jewish, and he was running to overcome prejudice. And it deals with their relationship and how it impacted the 1924 Olympics. Was very well thought of, got some awards. But the thing that probably is the most endearing is the theme song, which for a 1924 movie is actually synthesized because the director didn't want to do just a stuffy historical drama.
Mhm.
So the group that he got to do all the music is more modern music. So it's a really interesting combo because he was like, I don't want to do just a period piece. So other award winners, the next category for our Olympic movies is award darlings. First, we start with the 2014 biographical film that focused on Jean Dupont and his recruitment of two U.S. Olympic gold medalists who are also brothers, Mark Schultz and David Schultz. The story is that Dupont, who was the heir to the Dupont family fortune, he was a multimillionaire heir and a wrestling enthusiast. He wanted to get the two brothers after 1984 to recruit wrestlers and coach them, and then also prepare for the next Olympics. It ties in a little bit with the B-side because, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie and you don't know the story, there is a bit of a true crime aspect to it as well. The movie also goes into the subsequent murder of one of the Schultz brothers, David, by DuPont. The film received a ton of awards. Its stars, who were Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, and Mark Ruffalo, all were lauded for their efforts. In fact, oh yeah, have you not heard of this?
No. Where have I been?
It was not a big commercial success. Like, it was in and out of theaters in one of those, like, where they released it in December and then it was just for award season. Didn't make a ton of money. It was a Cannes Film Festival award winner, so it was nominated for the main prize. And I always say this phrase incorrectly, but I think it's the Palme d'Or, but it's basically like the best picture of the Cannes Film Festival. The director, Bennett Miller, actually won a Best Director at Cannes, and the film itself on its screening received a standing ovation at the end that was 8 minutes long.
Wow.
And 8 minutes is an eternity if you've ever been clapping. Like, that is a long time to clap. So you have to be really, really excited to clap for 8 minutes. And like, we've all been on planes when people get up and they clap, it's like 30 seconds. Maybe.
Right. And you're like, please stop.
You're like, please stop. But clapping does not go on for 8 minutes. Pretty amazing. The film also received Golden Globe nominations for Best Picture, Best Actor for Steve Carell, Best Supporting Actor for Mark Ruffalo. It got 5 Oscar nominations at the 2015 Academy Awards, including Best Actor for Carell, Best Supporting Actor for Ruffalo, and Best Director for Miller. So if you've never seen Foxcatcher, it is a wonderfully made movie. It's frustrating because Channing Tatum does a really good job in the movie as well, but everyone else is getting nominated except him, and I think it's simply because this is really the first time that anyone had kind of seen that role from Channing Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't really gotten to do anything like it again, because he's definitely been doing more of the Magic Mikes and the action movies and the comedies.
21 Jump Streets.
21 Jump Streets, yeah. So I don't think people were ready to vote for him, and I hope he gets another chance to show that part of his acting, because he did a really good job. The movie is excellent. It's not the easiest movie to watch. It is a very tense movie. It deals with some intense subjects, but worth your time and effort. Another one that is a little bit more enjoyable to watch, but also deals with some heavy moments, is the 2017 biographical sports movie, I, Tanya. That one, of
so
course,
good.
Yeah, so good, and they take an entirely different spin on it. It is, loosely based on actual events, but the way they phrase it is almost sort of that, mockumentary documentary thing with interviews with the victims who are in the present day, and they break the fourth wall And you've got Tanya Harding, who was played by Margot Robbie, and then Jeff Galooly, who was played by the wonderful Sebastian Stan.
That's right.
Of course, yeah, which you totally forget because he doesn't look anything like Bucky in that movie. Of course, the movie follows the life of figure skater Tanya Harding and her connection to the 1994 attack on Nancy Kerrigan. 94, I was 13 years old, and I remember this happening immensely. The video of Nancy Kerrigan after her knee, I think she was saying why me or something. That became a meme at the time as well. This movie was also very well loved by the critics. At the 90th Academy Awards, Allison Janney, who was also in it, who played Tanya Harding's mother,
she killed that role.
Yeah, she did an amazing job. She's so good. She won for Best Supporting Actress. The film also earned nominations for Best Actress for Margot Robbie and Best Film Editing, which feels weird when you toss that one in too, but I mean, film editing can really change a film. The Golden Globes, it also was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Janney, and then she won at the Screen Actors Guild and the Critics Movie Choice Awards. So basically, if there was a Best Supporting Actor statue that year, she was going to get it, which was pretty great. Robbie was nominated at the Screen Actors Guild and the Critics' Choice as well. And at the 71st British Academy Film Awards, it also was another one, because I said any time a Best Actress statue was being handed out, it went to Allison Janney. She also got it overseas as well. While the film was a big hit with the critics, it was another one, kind of like Foxcatcher, that was not a huge hit in the theater. It was kind of in and out of the theaters. It only grossed $53 million, but somehow, and this is, everyone must have taken scale on this movie because the budget was only $11 million.
Oh, wow.
So when you've got Allison Janney, Margot Robbie, Sebastian Stan, you also had like Paul Walter Hauser, who would then go on and play the guy in the Olympic movie about Atlanta, which I didn't put on my list because I thought it was okay, but it was the Clint Eastwood one. You had a lot of people. It was a good movie, and it was a lot of good actresses and actors, and they must have taken pay cuts just to be on it, because $11 million is nothing when you are making a movie, from everything that I've read. I have never made a movie, but if anyone wants to give me $11 million to make one, I will make it happen.
I'll help out.
Yeah, just be Brooke and I. It'll be a movie about our podcast. Who doesn't want to see that for $11 million? All right, and then because we are in Minnesota, I cannot talk about Olympic movies unless I talk about one of Minnesota's favorite sons and the movie Miracle. Of course, Miracle focuses on the 1980 Winter Olympics team, but for Minnesotans, it more importantly focuses on head coach Herb Brooks, who is from St. Paul, the city where I sit in right now. He grew up in St. Paul. He went to Johnson High School over on the east side. His team won the 1955 State Hockey Ice Championship, which we don't call it ice hockey in Minnesota because there is no other hockey. So the State Hockey Championship. And the high school hockey tournament here is one of the biggest annual events of the year. Like I know people who take off work and try to go to every game. Every game is broadcast on TV. They've had national, Canadian broadcasters come in just to call the Minnesota State High School tournament. When I first understood the concept of hockey, when I moved from Nebraska to Minnesota in the late 80s, was watching the high school hockey tournament. So it's really a big deal. Herb Brooks, of course, went on to play at the University of Minnesota. He was a member of the 1960 Olympic team, but he got cut. So he wasn't on the gold medal winner that year. Then he would go on to play on a total of 8 U.S. national and Olympic teams, including the 64 and 68 Olympic teams. Then he went on to coach the University of Minnesota, winning titles in 74, 76, and 1979. So he is definitely a favored son of Minnesota and especially St. Paul. And in fact, has a at the hockey stadium downtown. And if you know Minnesota, we have the Twin Cities. We have Minneapolis and St. Paul. The three of the four major sports franchises play in Minneapolis. You got the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Minnesota Twins, the Minnesota Vikings. They're all over there in Minneapolis. But the Minnesota Wild play in St. Paul at the hockey arena. And right outside the hockey arena is a statue of Herb Brooks with his arms up right after the Miracle on Ice, the 1980 Olympic team capturing the gold medal. Now, it was, of course, in the movie, he's portrayed by Kurt Russell. And interestingly enough, a bunch of the hockey players in that movie were also college hockey players at the time. So it kind of carried on the fact that there were a bunch of college hockey kids working together to take on the Soviet machine at the time, which was older professional players. And it is easily probably one of the biggest upsets in sporting history. And of course, because I'm from Minnesota, couldn't mention an Olympic movie list without it. But it is not my favorite Olympic movie. And as Brooke so perfectly spoiled,
Sorry.
that's okay. My favorite Olympic related movie is the 1993 comedy Cool Runnings. Directed by John Turteltaub and starring Leon Robinson, Dougie Doug, Raleigh D. Lewis, Malik Yoba, and John Candy in one of his last roles. And it was actually the last movie to come out before he passed away. It came out in October of 1993. At the time, and this is sort of a theme through all of these movies, Miracle is probably the one that sticks closest to reality in the retelling. The rest, whether it is Cool Runnings or Chariots of Fire or even Foxcatcher, I, Tonya, all have a little bit more artistic license taken. Cool Runnings focuses on the true story of the Jamaican bobsled team and how they got together and debuted in competition at the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary, Canada. The film generally received positive reviews. I remember seeing it in the theaters and absolutely loving it, and the music sticking with me as I walked out of the theater. The music was, because it was the 90s, the soundtrack was amazing. Jimmy Cliff had a cover of John Nash's I Can See Clearly Now. That actually reached the top 40 as a single in the United States, Canada, France, and the United Kingdom, all because of the movie. Of all of these, it was the biggest financial hit. It debuted at number 3 when it came out, and it had total domestic earnings, so just the U.S., of almost $70,000. That's U.S. and Canada. And then internationally, did even better with $86 million internationally. So almost $70 million in the U.S. and Canada, $86 million internationally, and almost $500,000 in Jamaica alone, for a total of $154 million in worldwide gross. So some fun facts and trivia about Cool Runnings. At the time, 1993, now granted, this has changed a lot since then, but it was the highest grossing live action film that Walt Disney Studios had ever released in 1993. Now, granted, it's been passed by all sorts of things from Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's pretty amazing.
But yeah, it was the high, like, not touching the cartoons yet, but it was the highest action live movie. The Jamaican team actually in real life, the bobsled community welcomed them a lot more so than they did in the movie. Of course, in the movie, there was the opposing teams didn't want them there, and there was some hostility. There's even a bar fight scene, which clearly was made up and did not happen. One of the most memorable characters, played by Dougie Doug, is Sanka. And Sanka has these lucky eggs that he carries away around with him and would hide them in his suit. And they'd go down the bobsled runs, and he would always check to see that the lucky eggs were there. He actually, in 2015, Dougie Doug confirmed that he still has them. They were made of rubber, and they were props, and he got to keep them after the show. In the movie, there is, of course, spoiler alert again, a bobsled crash on one of their second run. I think their second run, their last run, and it kind of serves as the climax of the movie. And in the movie, they did not reenact the crash. They actually took uh, footage from, I believe it was ABC at the time or CBS, whatever. I think ABC, and used the actual footage from the broadcast to show the crash. The cast for the movie could have been very, very different. Disney, when at one point when they were getting ready to cast the movie, had a dream cast lined up that they wanted. Now this didn't happen, but they were hoping that they could get Denzel Washington as Darius, Eddie Murphy as Sanka, Wesley Snipes as Yule, and Marlon Wayans as Junior. That would have been a very expensive cast, I would think,
Yes, it would.
at the time. So they were hoping for those guys. They didn't get any of them, but they had a lot of really interesting names who auditioned for the roles. Cuba Gooding Jr. So this is 3 years before his breakthrough sort of comeback, huge Oscar-winning role in Jerry Maguire. Jeffrey Wright auditioned, and even music, cultural, and all-around legend Tupac Shakur auditioned.
Shut up.
Yes, for Cool Runnings as well. But one of the cooler things about auditions is that Raleigh D. Lewis, who would go on to be cast as Junior, was hired just to be a reader at the auditions. So everybody would come in, and the actor who's auditioning is there. They've got their script and they're doing a scene, but they're reading with Lewis, who's sitting there just reading the other half of the scene with them. And so there's like sort of a constant. There's always one guy, and he did such a good job as just the reader that he ended up getting cast as Junior. Later, he would admit that he lied on his resume, saying that he had a bunch of acting experience in his home country of Trinidad. That of course nobody had any way to follow up on. So he got the role with a fake resume. But he got in the room and he did a great job reading, and that's all it took. And there was a sequel of sorts to Cool Runnings. It did not happen in theaters though. In 2014,
oh right, yeah,
there was another Jamaican bobsled team who qualified for the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, Russia. This time it was a two-man team, and they described themselves as Cool Runnings, the second generation. And the one of the members of the original team, Dudley Stokes, who was at that point the general secretary of the Jamaican Bobsled Federation, said, "I don't think support for the team, like we've seen over the last 3 days, would have been sustainable without the ongoing appeal of the movie." The team actually received funding from many sources to get to Sochi, including one campaign using cryptocurrency for Dogecoin. So very modern, updated. So Cool Runnings, of course, tells the story of the Jamaican bobsled team. It has amazing music. I did not know that, final bit of trivia, the opening song, the theme song for the movie, was actually written and performed by Malik Yoba. And he went into auditions and performed the song for them as if he was making it up off the top of his head. And he had written it and done it a bunch of times earlier. But he kind of was like, "Oh, I've got this song. How would I create a song about this?" And he does it off the top of his head. And everyone's like, "That's great." And he totally planned it out. So sometimes you gotta lie in your resume. Sometimes you gotta pretend that you're making up a song. Whatever it takes to get in the room and get you the part, nothing is off the table. So if you're on,
well, that's like Idris Elba pretended that he was American to get the role on The Wire.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Yeah.
You have to pretend sometimes.
Whatever it takes, you're an actor. So that, I mean, let's be honest, if you're an actor and you're lying, you're kind of just working.
You're kind of just doing what you do, your job.
You're just doing your job. It's just whether the camera's rolling or not, or you're on stage. I mean, I always tell my oldest that, when you audition, you get to perform for a couple people. And then when you get called back, you get to perform for a couple more people. And then when you rehearse, you get to perform for more people. And finally, it's just this ladder of stepping up. When you perform at preview night, you perform for a few more people. And then you perform on opening night for a full house. And, maybe on a Sunday when it's 95 degrees outside, you're performing for 5 people. I once did a show for a blind man and his dog it was a sketch show we were doing at a youth convention in New Orleans. And the only people in the audience were a blind man and his dog. But we worked our butts off and performed as much as we possibly could, just like it was a normal audience, because they deserved the same show as anybody else. But every time you get to do something, you're performing. It's not different from when there's an audience or when you're auditioning. That audition is a performance as well. It's just a smaller audience, and it's just as important as opening night.
Yes.
So these guys totally showed that, and they were able to create one of the more enjoyable movies that I've ever seen. And I'm kind of glad they didn't do any sequels or anything. It's just a one-off, and it's great in and of itself. You couldn't have anybody else but John Candy in that role, and it is one of my favorite roles of his as well. So I know what you're thinking. You're like, Adam, that is all well and good, but now that you've told us about these great movies, where can we find them?
Where can we watch them, Adam?
Where can we watch them? So Chariots of Fire is available on something called Tubi, which I am not subscribed to, I don't think. But it's free on there, or you can get it. You can rent it on YouTube, Google Play, Apple TV, Vudu, Amazon Prime. Foxcatcher is also one you're going to have to rent. Amazon Prime, YouTube, Google Play, Apple TV. I, Tanya is available with your Hulu subscription, with your Showtime subscription, with your Amazon Prime Video subscription, with your Sling TV subscription, and your Fubo TV subscription. So if you have one of those, you should be able to see it. If not, you can also rent it from YouTube and Apple TV, but it's one of the pricier ones. It's $15, $14.99 on Apple TV. Yeah. That is not cheap. Miracle, because it is a Disney movie, is available on Disney Plus. You can rent it for $3.99 from a lot of other spots. And Cool Runnings, again, another Disney hit on Disney Plus, and available to rent for $3.99 on other ones. But I would say if you've got Disney Plus and you're interested in Adam's or the A-Side's favorite Olympic movies, you can start off right there with two of them. And again, it's weird that of my top 5 Olympic movies that I think of, 3 of the 5 are Winter Olympic movies, and the Winter Olympics never get the love that the Summer Olympics do.
That's true.
Their ratings are they're still really good, but they're not nearly as good as the summer ones. And most of the Winter Olympic sports, a good portion of the world does not participate in. Track and field, there ain't a place on earth where people don't run.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we may not like running, but everybody's run everywhere on earth.
The funny thing is we're more inside during the winter too, so you would think more prime chances.
But it's also people watch the Winter Olympics, and I think there are more events in the Winter Olympics that more people don't do than there are in the summer. You can always everybody who's seen water has swam or has thought about swimming or knows about swimming. That's a little bit more universal, whereas not everybody has been on ice and said, let's throw some rocks, just curling. So that is the A-Side's top 5 Olympic movies, 3 of which, or 60% of, are Winter Olympics, even though I personally hate the winter.
And you live in Minnesota.
I know, just contradictions. All over the place. So,
oh man. Okay.
It's an enigma wrapped in a burrito of mystery.
Before we go, I have to tell you, I completely pulled an Adam.
Oh, okay.
So, Apple TV was giving you a trial. If you updated your phone or whatever, you got a trial, and then for so many months. And then because of COVID, it was extended until this month. And I forgot to cancel my subscription, so I ended up paying for it. And then I got the email, or I got my notification that I paid for it, and I was like, "Oh, I pulled an Adam, just paying for stuff I'm not even using."
You so pulled an Adam, because all of the words that you just said is exactly what I have done as well. Yeah, I got the Apple Plus, and then it got extended, and then last week I saw the charge, and I could not figure out what I had bought. But I spend way too much money on stuff, and I have mobile games and things that I buy, so it always just comes through as like Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "What? I don't remember doing anything." Like I'm super into Marvel Strike Force and Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. This is where it gets real nerdy because they're mobile games and they're RPGs and they're there's pay to play parts of it, and there are always stuff you can click on and get more. And I'm a sucker, and sometimes I do. And I was like, but I've been really good this week. Like, I don't remember buying anything on either of these games. And it turns out it was Apple Plus renewing.
Yeah. But you like Apple because you watch Ted Lasso on there.
I like Apple. There's a lot of stuff on there, and I do. IMDb TV right now is like number one, and it's free. Between that, so I would say right now in my informal ranking of what I'm watching the most, YouTube TV is my main go-to, and with the Olympics, it's recording all of the events for me, so I can watch them whenever, which is pretty nice. But then it's like IMDb TV and Paramount TV because I've just been binging Murder, She Wrote and the first seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I probably haven't touched those two things ever before. So it's like every month I come out, there's another streaming service that jumps to the top. I haven't even watched any of Ted Lasso season 2 yet. I am so behind.
I'm shocked. I am actually shocked.
Yeah, I did watch Gunpowder Milkshake, which if you're a fan of John Wick or action movies or sort of like modern fight choreography or Karen Gillian, Lena Headey, Paul Giamatti, Michelle Yeoh, Angela Bassett, Carla Gugino. Gugino. That's what I said. Definitely worth checking out. So, man, A-Side has been like, the topic is like a pinball, and I'm just like pinball wizard Tommy over here, just bouncing from one thing to the other. I apologize if anyone is getting like motion sickness from the change of subject. Yeah. What are we talking about?
Real fast. Want to tell you, really funny. Got a hilarious picture from Sarah, who listens, and she DM'd this picture. Apparently, somebody got married, and it was a Brooke and an Adam.
Yeah,
so they had these cupcakes, these really like gorgeous looking wedding cupcakes, and just said Brooke and Adam.
and then Adam, being a doofus, was like, "Oh, that's so nice. Somebody made us cupcakes." Like, no, Adam, nobody made you cupcakes.
No, they did not make us cupcakes. But if you
we did get a cake once.
Yeah, we did.
So it's not completely out of the realm of possibilities.
That's true. All right. So before we go, just a reminder, if you would like to, we would really appreciate you. We'll even send you a picture of our cupcakes. If you would head on over to Apple and give us a rating.
Not a metaphor.
Give us a rating and or a review would be greatly appreciated. It just helps us out. Also, another way to help is to head on over to buymeacoffee.com/A-side-B-side-pod. Support the podcast that way. You can also support the podcast by heading on over to our website, which is
A-side-B-side-podcast.square.site.
Yes. I'm so proud of you. I
did that out of memory. Yes, I'm a real boy.
We've got tons of merch, sweatshirts, which I know it's kind of hot, but winter will be here yet again. And
sweatshirts, so hot right now.
We have masks because probably gonna need those again. We've got t-shirts because it's hot, so you want a t-shirt. We've got coffee mugs to go with the coffee that you are drinking while you're listening. Also, you can let us know where you're listening. DM us, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on Facebook, also on Twitter. We have all of those. And we would love to hear from you. You can send us a story. Tell Adam that he needs to do a female for that girl from that show.
I do. I was all set to do that this week, and then there was the Olympics.
I get it. But you can also email us a story, or if there's a story that you'd like on the true crime side that you'd like me to look into, let me know. A-side, B-side podcasts @gmail.com. Thanks, Adam.
And also thanks to Sarah, who did send me a recommendation for an air fryer. So,
but have you bought one yet?
No, I'm too busy forgetting to pay for Apple Plus and Disney Plus and all the other streaming services.
Oh my goodness. All right. I expect you, one, to have seen Snake Eyes since you raved about it last week. That was your entire side.
I know. I'm so excited to see it. It's just there's only so many hours in the day and it's hot. And they're not doing late night. Like up here, AMC Theaters has like 3 showings a day. There's no daytime showings anymore. And there's nothing after 8 p.m.
I can't believe there's no daytime showings. It's summertime.
Yeah. I'm like, that's when I used to go. And then I go there and they're like, yeah, it's like a restaurant that's only open for dinner now. It's like, what the heck, guys? I'm a lunch man.
I need my breakfast.
I'm a brunch man. Oh, man.
Now you want brunch, don't you?
I do want brunch. I wanted pizza earlier. Evidently, I did not eat enough today. And everything is closed.
Oh,
we microwave popcorn for dinner.
I expect you to get an air fryer very soon.
Yeah, I got to do that.
All right.
Because then I can just use an air fryer right now.
It's true. It's true.
I am real good at the microwave.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Brooke.
As always, thank you for listening to A-Side, B-Side podcast. If you enjoy the show, please, if you don't mind, head on over to Apple and leave us a rating or a review. And if you'd like to continue to support the podcast, you can do so by heading on over to Patreon, or you can buy us a coffee, as well as buying merch on our website, asidebsidepodcast.square.site. From Adam and I at A-Side, B-Side podcast, please remember to wear your mask, social distance if you're around people that don't live in your household, and just be safe and happy. Thanks again from us here at A-Side, B-Side podcast.